within a historical context, and parents of children who attended Jewish day school, some of whom are not Jewish or were not born Jewish, or even were born Jewish but might be in need of an update, many of whom, if not all of them. And that should be really easy for me to do. And also, I'm considering some additional actions within a year or perhaps a year and a half from now, offering a special lecture on renewed forms of Jewish hatred, which I could do within the framework of the 3 Jewish congregations, and then teach an elective course on minorities and exclusion at the university I currently work at. From the point of view of Jewish Latin America. So what I would do, which is what I've done before, is offer a class with this kind of generic name and then insert the Jewish point of view as like in a contraband sort of thing. Hi.
I think they're going to come back shortly.
Just coming. President.
You want me to call them?
No, they are coming here, they are down here.
They're just there, okay. Thank you. Thanks.
So this is what I've been thinking about, a 2-module course. I don't know if that's how you say it in English, like a 2-part course. The first part is called Being Defined by Others, which is something that I gathered from this from our Summer Institute, Racialization, Exclusion and Power in the Americas. And it stems from the following questions. What does it mean to be a racialized group in Peru, in Latin America, in the US, Canada, and in the Caribbean? And the goal of this part is to promote a discussion of racialization from the point of view of Peruvians and other nations in the region. And the second part of the course would be focused on the Jewish experience, and I'm calling it a 2-fold minority, but a triple threat. And I know this might be... This might be a bit controversial because, well, the only country in the world in which Jews are not a minority is Israel, but there's only one country in which Jews are not a minority, so it kind of makes it a minority country among other countries. So anyhow, then there's the national portion and the religious portion of being a minority, right? And the questions stemming from that are, what lessons can be drawn from the experience of the Jewish people? Is it unique? And the goals of that part are to introduce the experience of exclusion, discrimination, violence, and genocide of the Jews around the world, and to establish similarities and differences between various experiences of exclusion and violence. I come from a Jewish studies background and from a sociology background, so that might explain the questions. So I'll try to be quick. The first part is something I've done before. We'll address or we'll talk about imperialism, colonialism, and racism, the first part of which will be devoted to the Spanish and Portuguese colonies, which are, and I call it the invention of the indígena, right? The invention of the Native American Indian, and how, because before the arrival of the Spaniards and the Portuguese, there were no Indians. There were Mayas, Aztecs, Chimús, whatever. So, and it's very important for our regular discussions. And so I would like to address the case of the Spanish and Portuguese colonies in the Americas and how they created 2 republics, the Republic of Indians and the Republic of the Spaniards. So we have a history of partition and division from the get-go. Then the second part of that portion is called Imperialism, Colonialism, and Racism, the English, Dutch, and French colonies, which have different systems. They were established later on, and there are some differences that are really interesting. Then I'd like to focus on the invention of whiteness, right, which is something that might come out of that. How science, capitalism, and imperialism intervene here. The case of the British colonies in North America and the case of Haiti, right? The rejection Haiti that came out of Haiti being the first independent republic, but it was a republic by slaves, by a slave rebellion. And of course there are many parallels within Jewish history, the rebellion of slaves with the case of Haiti, which are really important, and how Haiti will be now like the least developed country in the southern hemisphere, or in our part of the world, in the western southern hemisphere, and how how that relates to this invention of whiteness, right? Then I would like to discuss the Christian, I don't know how to pronounce this word.
Eschatology?
No, hegemony.
Hegemony.
Hegemony, thank you, in the colonies and minorities, right? Jews, Moriscos, which was the name of the Muslim people who, without being allowed to, arrived in the Americas. Sodomites, which was the name of sexual minorities, especially men, and women, right? And then I would like to focus on the invention of purity, right? Like, as the Spaniards and the Iberians were, the invention of purity of blood, but they would also persecute not only Judaizantes or people who had Jewish practices, but they would also, try to control women's sexuality, men-to-men sexuality in the colonies, whichever non-traditional or not accepted Christian practices or practices, like it would be called, I don't know, or they will persecute women for being witches. Also, it's very important for Peruvian history because there was a branch of the Tribunal de la Santa Inquisición, the Inquisition in Lima. There's actually a calle de los Judíos, a street of Jews in the historic downtown, because that's where there was a painting hanging of Jews being burnt at the stake. But and then Jews became very invisible. But there's also this question: why are there so few Jews in the Americas? Because they weren't allowed to get there. The same with Moriscos. So that's why this was a really, I don't know. These were only Christians allowed in the Americas. And then I would like to talk about racism as a modern phenomenon, how the ethno-racial classification in the Americas, in the colonial and post-independence Americas, it can be viewed through census. There's a nice study there to work with. And then racism and racialization in Peru. And I want to ask, is racism the same in every post-colonial setting? And then I want to recall the indigenismo against mestizaje, I don't know how to translate that, debate in the early 20th century in Peru. Basically, people were saying that there were a bunch of intellectuals saying that the indigenous, the Andean people are the purest form of Peruvians and all citizens should be like them. Whereas other people were saying, no, the best thing that could happen to us were the Spaniards, and the more Catholic and Spaniard we are, like, bullfighting and all sorts of things, the better, right? Because that's, I don't know. But there's some sort of thing regarding being a better citizen or not so good in terms of, whatever, with the history we've got, right? And then how we fight discrimination in Peru today, which is still latent. That's the first part. So I want to bring the debate to us. And then I'm moving to the second part, which is the Jewish experience. And then I would like to devote a session on medieval and modern anti-Jewish hatred in Europe. And I want to focus on the invention of the Jew, right? Jewish hatred in Christian Catholic lands, the Edict of Milan and the First Council of Nicaea, who is Jesus and what is Jesus and how that affected Jews elsewhere, the Crusades, the Lateran Council and anti-Jewish norms, and how those were the medieval roots of the Nuremberg laws later on, the Black Death and pogroms, ritual murder libel, desecration of the host, fun times, money and Jews, the accusation of usury and expulsion of Jews from basically all of Western Europe. So that, and I always want to see how that is tied to our Peruvian history, of colonization. And anyway, then I would like to talk about modern anti-Semitism, nationalisms, and the emergence of Zionism, and then which I call this portion the invention of Judaism, right? Because the Reformation created a notion of a modern religion apart from peoplehood and a relationship to territory, whatever. So, and that's been also widely studied by Daniel Boyarin and others, and I would like to discuss that, right? How hard it is for us as Jews to enter all other debates when we are being defined by others as a religion, and and we actually have all these other sorts of identities going on because we're pre-modern, so we need to define ourselves. Anyhow, Luther's anti-Semitism and the Jewish refusal to convert yet again with a newer version of Christianity, and we don't want to convert. The Enlightenment, emancipation of Jews in Western and Central Europe, social Darwinism, nationalisms and minorities, the Dreyfus Affair, Jewish national sentiment and the idea of a Jewish state, and Jewish migration to the Americas, which is of course relevant to us because some people, people managed to finally reach the Americas and they also faced some anti-Semitism in some countries, but they didn't face it equally because it's a really large region and it's very different all over the place. Then I would like to talk about, I really like this idea of Dan Michman about the Jewish genocide as a European project. I think that's very important because people with Italian or French ancestry, nobody is responsible for that anymore, but the focus is usually solely on German-speaking lands or in Poland, but it wasn't easy, right, everywhere else. So I want to discuss Jewish integration into European society and the European ambivalence towards the Jews, the protocols of the Elders of Zion, manifestations of political anti-Semitism, the Jewish women in the early years of Nazi Germany, the Nuremberg laws, the dehumanization and genocide of European Jewry in the context of World War II, the Shoah, Churban, Holocaust. I really enjoyed Dan Michman's talk. Then I would like to devote 2 sessions to the establishment of the Jewish state, which I think it deserves more than 2 sessions, but I've only planned for a 14-week class of at least 3 hours a week. The Zionist movement, the British Mandate, the 1947 partition plan, the IDF and the right to self-defense, the law of return, the 1948 war and borders, the Six-Day War, life in the occupied territories after 1967, the Lebanon War, the First Intifada, the Oslo Accords, the Rabin assassination, which was very influential to people my generation, indeed. The Second Intifada, the disengagement plan. I was living in Israel and my husband actually took part in it as part of the army, so there's a lot we can talk about that. The Homa and the checkpoints, and the Startup Nation and the Abraham Accords, which are now something I would add. And then at the second part, I would like to discuss anti-Jewish hatred in Arab and Muslim lands, life before the 1947 partition plan in those lands, the Farhud and other anti-Jewish riots in Arab lands, Arab identity and civil rights, the Nakba, the notion of the Nakba, I would like to recover that too, the 1967 war, Palestinian administrations in the West Bank and Gaza, why they failed when they failed, the responsibility of those leaders in the conflict too, how the Palestinians can also be seen as people with some sort of agency despite the disproportionate whatever. Palestinian identity, Gaza and Hamas after a disengagement, Hezbollah and other Iranian-backed terrorist movements. Just, to set the mood for what's coming next, which is new forms of anti-Jewish hatred from the 1970s to the 1990s, starting with the UN Resolution 3379, Holocaust denial, the rise of neo-Nazism in Europe, international terror aimed at Jewish communities worldwide, and something I called from Munich and Entebbe to the AMIA bombings, which of course, once again, bring us back to Latin America, which is what I want. I don't want us to be thinking that that's something that happened a long time ago and far away from home. It's close to us. We are not free to pray without security. I cannot send my child to a school without guards and cameras, so that means a lot to us. I want to be free. I want the state to protect me, not have to protect myself there. And then I'm almost done. New forms of anti-Jewish hatred, the triple threat, which is also something that I'm bringing back home with me from the ISGAP seminar. Is Islamism, radicalization, anti-Zionism, anti-Judaism, anti-Semitism, devoting all this time, a lot of time to defining these notions. What does Islam actually proclaim, which is something we're very ignorant about. New forms of anti-Jewish hatred, the extreme right, white supremacists in the US. We don't have that in Peru. The threat to destroy Western civilization, which again, we don't have it in Peru, but it's important that we know that someone else is talking about that. Conspiracy theories in the UK, Bolsonaro and the appropriation of the cause for Israel in Brazil, and then the extreme left, BDS, and its links with Islamism. And that's it. And then a last session as a recap, useful lessons from the Jewish experience, what is and what is not anti-Semitism, the IHRA definition, the 3Ds, which I think are very helpful, and that's it. And then here I actually developed some tools and what the strategy would be, but I think that would be too long and boring for you guys, and we need to leave the room at 4. So, but basically that's what I've been working on.
Amazing.
Wow.
For the readings, what do you have the readings? Are you going to compile them?
Oh yeah, I actually do. Wait a second. Well, for the first part, I already have them, and you guys can see now. Sorry, I closed everything too early.
But you can tell us.
What do I have? So for the first part, we're reading, well, there's some videos there. We're reading about Christian hegemony in the colonies. Nathan Bachtel, we've got, no.
Instead of going through everything, but you have a comprehensive reading list?
Absolutely. I've got a bibliography already set, and I need to read and to find more resources. I've got more stuff for the first part because I've worked about that, but I've found so many resources from ISGAP.
It's amazing. I hope you'll share it with us when you're finished.
Absolutely.
It really is comprehensive and you touch on all the key issues. And it covers.
I
Thank
definitely
you so much.
will. Thank you.
That's a serious course.
Yeah.
Felix,
You have a report?
Nadia, as you wish. Up to you.
I would love to take that course.
Oh, that's the best compliment ever. Thank you. Happy to share it whenever it's done.
After Felix, who's left?
Internationalization.
Felix, are you the last one?
No, well, I'll do a quick thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Felix and Rome. And that's it? How are you?
He's come for the certificate.
I know. Shows up at the right time.
What's Paul? Yeah, he looks like Joe.
Okay, so I'm ready. Yeah.
You have the certificate? She's coming soon? Okay.
Okay, so I'm happy actually to share with you my ideas about the upcoming course of History and Reality of Contemporary Global Antisemitism in my university. Actually, I work in a real university as a director for strategic project development and in the World Zionist Organization, actually the World Zionist Congress, towards different educational activities for diaspora. So I see this course as a great resource for academic community as well as for different academical institutions outside of Israel. So actually my name in Russian and in Ukrainian means hope, so let's see what I hope to see during this course. First of all, it's very important to mention that we have a variety of students in the campus. For instance, about 3,500 students in our campus, the first generation of people who receiving the higher education in Israel. We have big representation of Arabic community, a lot of new immigrants from Ethiopia, immigrants from the countries of former Soviet Union as well as from United States, and quite huge population of international students. And my goal actually in this course and like as a project in the campus to establish the culture, you know, of the studies of anti-Semitism. And if you are talking about, you know, possibility to conduct this course for the countries of former Soviet Union, so I think that it's very important to build this, I would say, sustainable culture and surrounding for all the students. And in my countries it's still not, you know, not exist because of different reasons, and I will try to explain it during the presentation. Actually, I see the possibilities for academic and community courses for Israel and diaspora, in-person and online courses. I think that it will be great to have invited speakers during the courses, and I also will invest a lot of resources to build different student research projects on the topic. Because I think that when student works, it works in a much better way. So materials, of course, I already created the list of resources for students, and to divide into few groups, I see as a partners in this course, governmental and non-governmental organizations in Israel, different international organizations. For instance, we have Zionist federations in countries of former Soviet Union. We have different archives as well as for instance, archive of Adassa or different other organizations. Of course, I will use resources of ISGAP, NGO Monitor, World Zionist Organizations, World Jewish Congress, and different Jewish federations. I'm talking also about media resources, different newspapers, interviews, and so on. And of course, historical archives. I also had a chance to present you the idea of digital archive and digital alliance. So of course the materials on historical research, for instance, about the countries of former Soviet Union can be used from this digital resource. So what is very important to mention that all of us, today are talking about different target audience of the students. I had the chance to work with Israeli students and students which are new immigrants in the country, and for instance, not all the students understand that anti-Semitism still exists. I mean, they ask in different questions. For instance, people who are coming from Moscow to do it, they really don't understand what does it mean anti-Semitism. They think that we have actually the term which we use recently, which is called the golden era of Jewry in the countries of former Soviet Union. So people still believe, despite the fact that we have a lot of reports about anti-Semitism attacks in these countries, students believe that there is no any issues about this point, so they don't understand what does it mean today. So these are the most common questions that I usually receive from students, like what does it mean anti-Semitism, are you sure that it still exists, and so on and so on. And the biggest question for students, specifically for Israeli students, if it's possible that anti-Semitism is relevant for Israel, how it can be possible and why we should talk about it at all. I just want to share with you some very important video why the students from, for instance, new immigrants from the countries of former Soviet Union think that we have a golden era of Russian-speaking Jewry. It's 1 minute, so I hope... Oh, just a second. I will copy. Just before I will open it, just to know that all the people who are taking part in this video, they are very influential in Russia today. Just a second. This is the invitation for Russian-speaking Jews to come to Rosh Hashanah. Just a second. So this is the building, one of the main buildings in Moscow, and the chief rabbi of Chabad, he invites people to come. So it was together with support of the government of Russia, and the most influential people who are like the part of Jewish community, they are taking part in this video. Like the idea is to show that all the influential Jews are leaving their place of work to come to Rosh Hashanah celebration to the community. Okay, so actually I think that's enough. I mean, just to understand that such kind of invitations we receive, for Pesach, for Rosh Hashanah celebration and so on. So after this, I think you can understand that students absolutely don't believe that we have any issues with anti-Semitism in these countries. So a course outline. I'm thinking about, I'm going to establish the course of 10 weeks for now. And you can see the schedule according to each week. At the very beginning, of course, I would like to start from the introduction and basic terms and methodological approaches to the academic studies of anti-Semitism. Second week, it will be Jewish identity studies and its existence and coexistence in diaspora. I think that's very important to understand that establishing, the culture and the academic studies, academic courses of anti-Semitism in these countries is very important to explain to people what does it mean, the Jewish identity, and why maybe they didn't experience any issues of anti-Semitism, maybe because they don't show their identity or don't show their, link to the Jewish community and so on. So I would like to discuss it with students. Anti-Judaism, anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. I'm going to talk about it on the next week. After that, anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial, genocide, apartheid and racism. Week number 5, it's Israeli-Palestine conflict and Abraham Accords. For me, I think that it will be one of the most challenging weeks because, of course, in Israel we have different discussions and left-oriented and right-oriented students. So I think that in this week I should invest a lot of resources and to give as much space as possible for students to discuss it. Next week is International Social and Human Rights Movements, and here I really appreciate all of you because if I would build this course, before coming to ISGAP, I would definitely not take it into account. So thank you very much. Next week it's anti-Semitism, the global world. After that, anti-Semitic campaigns on internet, BDS movement. COVID-19 and anti-Semitism, it will be week number 9, and actually the finishing of the course, it's student research projects and presentations. What is very important for me to know that I think that actually we are the huge resource of not only of list of resources and books and so on, and I will be happy to collaborate. To invite you as a guest speakers. I mean, today we can do everything via Zoom because it's great when we have such courses, but it's great when you can share your experience with students and to tell about, because sometimes I experience that students in Israel, they don't believe about the issues that Jews have in diaspora, so I think it's extremely important, and I also will be happy to volunteer, and if you need any lectures or comments about the Russian-speaking community, I also will be happy to take part in your courses. And maybe in future we will be able to do some joint students projects and joint research. Thank you very much.
It's amazing. Any comments or questions? Abito?
No.
No?
Please, thank you. Fantastic. I love it. This is great. I have 2 questions. One, why are you putting the Israel-Palestine conflict and Abraham Accords together in the same week? And then the second thing is, will you relate to secularist anti-Semitism or any representations of religious anti-Semitism in current times? If you know what I mean about Jews being too religious, to blah, 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 things like that we know from the Middle Ages and are also happening today. And are you going to talk about in what way are you going to incorporate the value of, kind of against anti-Semitism for democracy and for building identity? Is it going to be in the first part of the course? I hope this makes sense.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for questions. First of all, about Israeli-Palestine conflict and Abraham Accords. For our university, it's very relevant because we started actually to apply for different grants and different applications after the Abraham Accords started, and it was a huge impact for us. So I think that maybe it will be not enough time during one lesson, to discuss everything, but I see that it can be part of quite, fruitful and resultful discussion. What was the second question about?
Religious persecution.
Okay, about religious, yes, I also thought about it. I think that here I will need actually, to ask for advice of my colleagues, because we have different religious groups in the campus, and I know that's always, we have Haredi community, we have modern Zionist community, which are the most of the students. So I think that I should, think about it more and figure out how to do it in a very right way. But thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Felix? Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you.
And while we wait for Felix, those of you who are here, I want to remind you, we have a fellowship program. And those who are interested to join the fellowships or the fellows, we have about 60 fellows that are in our network. We meet once a month via Zoom. And it's just a very good network. People do collaborations, they do programs together, they do publications together, research projects are emerging. So all you have to do is send Alfred and I a letter of application, and I'm sure you'll be accepted if you're interested.
Where are we again with the?
Just exit out of it, just hit.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was, yeah. So I sent it quite some while ago. And fantastic. I don't have a PowerPoint, so I will have just one pager and talk through it. Now, it has been a pleasure and 2 wonderful weeks that I had here. I really learned a lot. I didn't know much about anti-Semitism. I have read a lot about the Holocaust, but not much about anti-Semitism as the broader frame of looking at things. But I came here also because I wanted a little bit to compare that experience with my own context, which is another context with some quite other package of other issues from the Great Lakes region, Rwanda, Congo, Uganda, Burundi, and so on, with quite a share of Belgian inheritance, software, messed up kind of realities that we have, of course, very creatively also made into other things in the past, let's say, 60 plus years. I'm here partly because a few weeks back also I made a virtual kind of presentation in a workshop and presented a paper I wrote, I published in the Journal of Genocide Studies on hate speech. So whatever I'm about to say more or less and connect here has to do really with the frame of hate speech and conspiracy theories and how a little, from what I learned here, so I can connect more or less anti-Semitism to that in my lectures in the coming few years. I'm from a legal background, so my kind of course I have in mind now, still work in progress, fits really much more into the things around justice, but also more importantly, since I work also in the space of conflict and peace studies. So it's really at the intersection of peace and conflict studies, but identity studies. I was happy to hear Romina because things around indigeneity. I published a book on indigeneity within the broader context of Africa with a lot of parallels with Latin America. So identities, but also things around justice as well. So that's where the curriculum fits. So we have already a ready-made course on genocide, mass atrocities, where we map actors, we look at causes and responses to violence within that context. It's a 6-week course intensive that we ran. But there was a gap from what I could see and from also my latest studies in terms of a little bit digging deeper into the area of hate speech, hate crimes and conspiracy theories broadly, but also within the region, and now more increasingly, as I intend to do, on anti-Semitism studies. So this is the sketch of what I wanted to do based on the last reflection I had to complement whatever I have already, which I don't have time to present.
Can you increase it?
Ooh, I'm sorry. The only thing I could do maybe, of course I'm looking at the wrong way. The only thing I guess I could do would be the bottom,
Thank you.
and then see whether I can scroll through. So the first thing I would do, of course, keeping the structure I have for the other course will be to look at the conceptual debates around hate speech and conspiracy theories. Here I would dive into the existing literature, broadly speaking, not specific to any context, that you have quite a lot which debate what it is, what it is not, what it is in the US, not generally, and what it is elsewhere, depending on criminalization or not. And then, so there is a lot body of literature already I'm familiar with that I have already dialogued into in my own work. The second, then I would really dive into the intersection of hate speech and violence, both physical violence but also structural violence, historical perspective, but also most importantly, again, debates, academic debates about whether there is a correlation between hate and violence. It's still asked as a question. In many contexts, there is increasingly proof that that correlation does exist, but it's still debated as if whether that is indeed the case. So in a course, you want students to engage with all of those debates and take into account that reality. Third, I intend to, of course, specifically look at the landscape we have today of hate speech on social media. As I said, my recent article was on that. I dialogued again with a growing the body of literature, Thomas Zetov, among many others, and I would want to single out that specific space, social media being a new phenomenon relatively, and how dynamics of hate speech, let's say, receive a wider audience. Again, there is quite a large body of literature that I didn't want to put here for now. Then I intended to do two case studies. Of course, my default case study is the Great Lakes region, where we have historical perspective that inform hate speech, where we have the contemporary manifestation of hate speech, and then what are the key debates in this space? What is hate debate? What is not? What is it accepted? What is not? And what are the responses, which will be the next? I'll follow a same line then to introduce anti-Semitism studies in the same as a second case study, where I will look at anti-Semitism in historical perspective. We have had quite a lot here. I loved very much lectures such as Joel Kotek, but also Mirkman, of course. I was happy to dialogue with him. And I think their work can inform much of this section and their publications. But also there is a contemporary manifestation of anti-Semitism. I guess that's what we spent much of the time talking about in different contexts, in different historical perspectives as well. But also key debates that we have around anti-Semitism today. Especially in relation to the conflict in the Middle East. And I guess I need also to dive a little bit more in that literature. And finally, I always want to end with the responses. What are the responses or lack of responses there? And I want to do this through student projects, and then we could work together that path. And those responses may be of a legal nature, maybe of political nature, but also social nature. With that in mind and time in mind, I will end here. Thank you.
Thank you. Important. Any comments or questions?
Really interesting. I think it's
Felix, are you also going to look at issues of memory?
Oh, absolutely. Memory, well, we have already memory in the separate course on genocide and mass atrocity and so on. So that comes already, again, in the broad terms, yes.
Is it, and when you look at the Holocaust and the Rwandan case?
Definitely, it always comes. It always comes already existing. I mean, Rwandan processes of memorialization, I think, are widely kind of informed by the experience of the Holocaust. In that sense, then, the comparison always is there when you engage quite deeper with the literature there.
Many years ago, I introduced people in Rwanda to people in Yad Vashem.
There was quite a lot. I know there was quite a lot of dialogue, so I didn't know. Yeah, but it's absolutely correlated. I see people definitely need to get out of the room. I can see that. Thank you.
Take your time because the certificates are on the way.
Okay, it won't be long.
No, we have like, we're going to be a holding time.
Okay.
There's no rush.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hi everyone. It's the last slot. So I think we heard a lot, about anti-Semitism and that, and all its devastating impacts and causes. But for me, like the most interesting one was from Jacob Dalal about the importance of being proactive, taking initiative, and ties into the importance of lawfare, which is using legal instruments to actually combat anti-Semitism, BDS, and delegitimization.
So I'll just give you a bit of a background context of what we were doing in South Africa with the South African Zionist Federation in relation to what happened in July 2020. BDS, in the form of Africa for Palestine, laid a complaint against our now previous Chief Justice Mogoeng on the basis that he had contravened the Judicial Code of Conduct by engaging in political controversy. He was actually interviewed by the Jerusalem Post on questions of peace and love, and it was just a very, what is seemingly a benign conversation about Israel, and it was in relation to memory and in honor of memories of Mandela. And it actually became, obviously it was twisted by BDS. The Chief Justice said, I love the Jews, I love Israel, I love Palestine, I love the Palestinians, I love everybody. It's a commandment from God, and he's quite Christian, so he said it's an obligation as a Christian to love Israel and to pray for Jerusalem. And because he'd said this, BDS accused Mogoeng of showing his support for Zionism and Zionists, and embroiled himself in a political controversy, which is one of the things that goes against the Judicial Code of Conduct. So they led a complaint with the Judicial Services Commission, which is the commission that is charged with making sure that judges are impartial and independent and fulfill their role as judiciary should. And so what was quite, shocking for some, not shocking for others, is that the Judicial Conduct Committee held that Mogoeng had contravened the Code of Conduct by engaging in political controversy, and he used his position, his judicial office, he brought it into disrepute, and he had failed to show respect for the separation of powers by engaging in political discussions. And so he was forced to make an apology, which was specifically worded for him, and he had to sign it. And even though he tried to appeal, and he tried to tried to fight it, in the end he had to sign the apology, and this became a whole political scandal in South Africa. So in response to this, we as the South African Zionist Federation, the legal department, we launched a complaint. We thought, okay, well now if we are laying complaints against judges, which is something that's not to be taken lightly, we actually should have a long time ago laid a complaint against now retired Judge Siraj Desai, who was a very, very outspoken member of BDS and part of the anti-Israel political lobby, and this had been going on for about 10 years. He had got involved in various BDS activities, and no one had actually challenged him on this. And so we led our own complaint with the Judicial Conduct Committee against him, because in his position as a judge, he had led the Gaza March in 2010. He was the head of that delegation, and he had also hosted Hamas in South Africa. He had also in 2020 he was on a Iranian YouTube channel where he was comparing the Ayatollah Khomeini to Mandela, and other really crazy stuff. He also called the United States the Great Satan, and basically contravened all these things. He was contravening all the different layers of the Code of Conduct of being a judge, and he also failed to recuse himself from one case in which BDS was party, so he didn't disclose the fact that he had a vested interest in the matter. So with that case, we're still waiting to hear back from the Judicial Conduct Committee because they are taking their time to decide this one, whereas with the Mogoeng case, they were rather speedy with their decision. So, but why I'm telling you this, why it's relevant, is because I don't know if most of you know, but last year in January 2021, the UN Human Rights Council set up an ongoing independent commission of inquiry to investigate in the occupied Palestinian territory all alleged violations and abuses of international human rights law. And they were mandated to report to the Human Rights Council and General Assembly in June this year and in September. So the three people that were set up as part of this independent and impartial commission of inquiry, one of them is a South African. She's actually, well, now it's public knowledge because the International Legal Forum, which is it's an Israeli-based lawfare organization, but they basically like UN Watch. I don't know if you've heard of UN Watch. Yeah. And so they've just released a really good report, which I can share with all of you, which we also, at the South African Zionist Federation, we also helped with, about how problematic this commission was, and specifically because the chair of the commission, Navi Pillay, a former UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, she actually has been very outwardly involved in BDS activities and pro-Palestinian activities, as well as like engaging with the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which is an internationally designated Palestinian terror group. And she's also advocated her support for the Durban conference, which we've heard a lot about. And she continuously referred to Israel as an apartheid regime and accused the Jewish state of war crimes and crimes against humanity. So the problem with that is that the Commission of Inquiry is supposed to be an independent fact-finding commission. The judges are supposed to be impartial, and so what we plan to do is try and, at this stage it's still confidential and under wraps, and but we are planning to try and bring a complaint against the chair on the similar basis that we brought against Judge Desai for acting contrary to the position of a judge. So yeah, so it'll be interesting, and if anyone wants to, Felix, I know he's also the international lawyer, or anyone else that's keen to get involved or has ideas or something, I'll also obviously be happy to hear your comments and everything. So thank you so much to all of you as well. It's been unbelievable to get to know you and to learn from you all. And I'm really sad this is finishing.
Please share on WhatsApp those things you just...
Yeah, for sure. I'll send everything to you. Okay.
Cool. So your work's amazingly important. I have a question. Do you ever confer with Albie Sachs about these issues? Does he have anything to say?
We haven't really engaged with Albie Sachs because he
always struck me as reasonable, very reasonable.
He's reasonable, but he's still a member of the ANC. Sure. So he has to be very politically correct, and he's, yeah.
You know better than I do. So I used to know him quite well in the past, and he always struck me as a kind of a lawyer first and a politician. He
is like that. He'll kind of help behind the scenes.
Yeah. So he's giving you.
But
is he privately concerned? Does he give advice?
He doesn't really like to get involved with Israel. He's not. He'll help with Jewish things. Like he came to there was a book launch about Jewish anti-apartheid activists, which he spoke at. And he did the book launch, so he's happy to do Jewish things, but I don't think he's happy to put his face on Israel stuff. Yeah.
Even if it's anti-Semitism, he won't make that connection.
we'll try and we'll. I'm happy to chat to him. Yeah, I'm happy to.
I could be wrong.
No,
He
but
always
we
struck me
could.
as reasonable. Maybe as things become more and more clear and more
Yeah.
serious.
No,
Yeah.
No, it's a big name. Yeah, no, it's big
constitutional
name.
focus. I
Yeah.
think he was
Yeah.
instrumental in creating the Constitution.
No, he was. He
Yeah.
was.
So I
Yeah.
have a feeling we may have a surprisingly good friend.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
I could be
We'll.
wrong.
I'll come with you. We'll chat to him together.
You know, I met him. So he was. The ANC tried to assassinate him. He was in a car bomb. He was
Yeah,
very
he's got
badly
one arm.
injured. And he came here when he was recovering. So his first public appearance was here
Wow.
in Oxford. Yeah.
Wow.
The ANC tried to assassinate?
The apartheid regime.
Oh, the apartheid regime, so. Yeah, I thought, what?
Sorry. Yeah. It's the time of the day.
Sorry, so the ANC tried to
Yeah,
kill him.
yeah.
Maybe if he helps.
Yeah.
I was worried.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
The apartheid regime was an assassination. They had an assassination campaign. And that's one of the reasons why I was saying some colleagues I wouldn't shake the clerk's hand because he was involved in this project. Yeah. Anybody else comments,
Any-
questions?
Thank you.
So I'm going to
I'll
make
send
some
you
final
that stuff.
remarks. We have a little bit of time left in the room. The certificates are on the way. Could you close the light? Not the camera.
The projector.
Off the projector.
That white
The
button.
white panel is off.
Cool.
The off button.
It's fine.
Indeed.
He's actually not wanting to do it.
It's flashing.
Yeah, he's not happy.
What?
Sorry, I called it a. Yeah.
Whatever. Something happened. Yeah, that worked. Cool, thanks.
So when are you?
Thank you, that's great.
All right. So everybody, I have an important announcement to make. There's a mandatory extension of the program next week. You're all expected to attend. I'm kidding. Yeah. I just, pardon?
But we'll start at 7 in the morning.
Yeah, tomorrow, Saturday. Anyways, no, so I said it last night, so I don't want to repeat myself, but thank you so much, everybody. It was really intense and really, I think, really productive. I learned a lot, and I think of things in different ways, and it was very productive and rewarding for me. So, and I hear the response. I know it's for you as well. So thank you. It's wonderful, and I hope we'll stay in touch. And that's the thing I was saying yesterday. We really have. We created a digital research center, and part of the digital research center is this fellowship program. And it's an excellent network of people. It's just not names on a website. We meet once a month, and we discuss issues, projects, concerns, and it's a vibrant group. And I think it's helpful. You can stay in touch with people if you need advice, if you're dealing with political crap. It's people are around to help and to give advice. Kind of academic, institutional advice. We also have connections to legal advice, so it's a good group of people. So I hope just send a letter of application to me and copy El Shaddai because I don't keep up with my emails so well, and we expect people to contribute to the energy and activity. So you can propose that you'll write something, do a program, develop a research project. That you have to sort of be active, but it should dovetail with the work that you're doing at your home university. So it could be good. So that's I think a good project. Yeah, and if you have any ideas, you can circulate them in this group, and I'm sure they'll catch on somehow, some way. So I hope you'll do that. And That's it. Any other comments or questions?
Nobody got COVID.
Nobody? Yeah, a miracle. Oh no. Yeah. Sorry, everybody.
I'm so proud of it.
Sorry. Okay. So, people, excuse me. Deidre has a question or a comment.
I always have a question or a comment. So I'm thinking about continuing the conversation, continuing the protection. And
About what, sorry?
I'm just wondering if ISGAP ever partners with other organizations, either on virtual or in-person things, like not to give us money, but if I could put ISGAP on one of my posters for an anti-Semitism
Definitely.
event, then it raises your profile
100%.
and it shows that collaboration.
100%.
So who do
Yes.
I reach out to in that?
Yeah, we can
Just
discuss
like
it, yeah.
You directly?
Yeah, and then we have, I can speak to you, and if it's a more complex, demanding project,
Yeah.
we can speak to the academic advisory committee and discuss it. Yeah, you can speak
Because I
to
want
me.
people to know about you on my campus.
Cool. And yeah, so sometimes we do that too. We can lift you up, you can lift us up. But it's also, we also believe sometimes it's like no ego, no logo.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can provide resources, and it may not be appropriate to have our name given your political landscape. So whatever is best.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. It'd be great to collaborate with you
Good
guys.
luck that.
Cool.
Need you in Canada.
Yeah, I visit regularly, so family in Montreal. And a lot of our donors are in Toronto. They play a big role. It's a very strong, wise, educated group of people in the Jewish community in Toronto. They're very committed to, very impressive people, generous and smart. So they're around. And they're smart people, and if you have good projects, we can introduce you to people. Okay. You know, you don't have to put them.
She's just heard about it.
No, it's okay. You don't have to put them in. We can. Give me 1 minute. You don't have to put it in.
No, it's the painting. I did that. Club Penguin. Did you remember Club Penguin? I loved it. I'm heartbroken that you can no longer access it. Utterly heartbroken. Anywhere outside? Club Penguin, Pound Food, Moshi Monsters,
Shield, floor 2, room 9.
Oh, I lost one
That's me. Okay, thank you.
I lost one yesterday. All right. So everybody, this is a nice part of the program. I'm happy to, on behalf of El Shaddai, Daphne, Harris, Funtahoon, Rami, Chelsea, the team, I'm happy to give you these certificates. So it's kind of appropriate, the first guy in the way, the man who's bringing us pride, Mr. Friedman. Gabby, you got a certificate.
Another one?
Another one. Thank you. I shake everybody's hand in the age of COVID.
I'll make sure it's not online first. We can have a kiss and stuff.
So Deidre.
I've been the one who coughs on everything. Meant so much to us.
Me too.
So proud of this.
Dr. Avital Hecht. Dr. Tyron Laws. Felix.
on LinkedIn, yeah.
And Cindy.
I'm so far away from you.
It's a Zionist lioness.
You know there is the Lioness group in New York, you know? Yeah. Are they still going? They've been
I don't know.
Zionists?
Zionists?
The Zionists.
Zionists.
They're
Are they
the Jewish feminists.
Yeah, are they still going?
Yeah, I think so.
With Amanda Berman?
I run Zion.
They were very prominent and they kind of got quiet.
Yeah.
They were doing great work. Huh. Anyway, okay. Lev. Pamela Walker.
Another Zionist lioness.
Yeah. Romy Wolfson.
Go to speak it later.
And Romina. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Noah Ben David.
Whoa!
Wait, go here?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I usually charge $1 for this.
Thank you very much. The greatest of
And Meredith.
With all the rights and privileges that go along with this.
Yeah. You get to pay £3 in the bar for a whiskey tonight. Ben Ruda. So Mitchell went home, unfortunately.
But can I clap for him because he's amazing?
Is anybody here from Montreal? All the Montrealers left?
Sarah also. Actually, I'm seeing him this week. He's in London.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
He didn't- he didn't-
That's right. Are we going to see your room? There'll be 2 rooms.
Are you sure? Because he was supposed to go home to Montreal.
No, he's in London this whole week.
You're sure?
I'm
His sister's in London.
Yes, because I thought he was going to go home.
No.
We've now just outed him.
I promise you.
Harry, a tracker. You need a tracker.
You can try. Honestly, I'll put.
Is Samantha here? Samantha.
She's not feeling well.
Okay, all right. Okay.
We need a Jewish pride song to like.
Yeah.
That's
Chelsea. Chelsea.
Charles, can you give me Samantha's certificate? I'm gonna.
Oh. She'll go back to my. Is Usher here? Usher?
Yeah.
And Sarah? Is Sarah here? Sarah.
I can't sing. I need you. Anything.
Sarah Diane is not here, but around close to Sarah. Harry, you'll give it to the Montrealer? You give it to
We're
Mitchell?
going to see Mitchell in London.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm not going to. Yeah, I know.
And Fatima, who's amazing, she's gone. And Noah is the rapper, the leader, student leader who's gone home. We'll get it to him. And Aaron David Fuhr, who was amazing, who was brave, I think, to be here, who's gone home. And last but not least, Mr. Harry Saul Markham. All right. Sure. Yeah, it'd be nice. Wait, is Christ? Hey, we have. There's a few more. Not last but not least. Hold on. Sorry. Christine Maxwell.
I've actually got a diploma. Oh, I need my degree now.
And Diane Martin. And Nadia. Thank you.
Square.
Keep hope alive.
Okay, so that's it for the certificate. We have these like plastic folders that can help protect them, so help yourself.
Oh, great.
I'll give them out. So everybody, thank you, and if you're staying around this evening, maybe we can make a plan to meet in a pub or something. Yeah? Who's going to coordinate it?
Is that you picking up our own?
Who?
Guys, in the tradition now created by Joel. So we've only done this once, so I think now we're making a tradition. It was a really wonderful moment for us to sit and sing a song together.
Oh,
So I think that we
Mohammed,
should
he was in
again,
the
this was
conference in
Peter's
Cambridge.
suggestion, but I'm not taking any credit for Charles. But I think the song that we should sing is Am Yisrael Chai. So I will explain the words for those of you who don't know and repeat them so you can sing along. There's a second verse that we're not going to sing because it's more words. So the first word is Am, which means people or nation. Yisrael, Israel, and Chai, the Chai, which is live. So it's the people of Israel live. And it's a really wonderful song and chant. People use it online, lots of kind of reference to the resilience and strength and beauty of our community, because although we've just spent 2 weeks talking about the hate that targets us, we always have to bear in mind that we are so much more than that. We're a rich, beautiful civilization, and that should always be the foundations of the work that we're doing. So again, the words are Am Yisrael Chai.
I'm going to interrupt for a second. Paul, where's Paul?
Hello.
Hello. We don't have a certificate. It was like a minor oversight because you joined this late, but we're going to get you a certificate. I'm sorry.
Yay, Paul.
And Paul, thank you for your wisdom and contributions. Thank you.
Back to the song.
Okay, back to the song.
Okay, so the words again are, no speaking. The words again are, Chelsesh, Am Yisrael Chai. Okay, let's just repeat them. So Am, Israel, Chai. Okay, and those of you who know it, please sing along with me, and those of you who don't, it's very simple, it's 3 words, you pick it up. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Okay, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Do we have to have
Oh, Harry's person on the tape. Is this true or not? If we're not under kids, they're in my brother, we'll bring them to us. And then mail them to the other lines.
Yeah.